Mr. President and dear brother, Lady Kownda, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I have been expecting for a long time to have this particular pleasure of welcoming you to the Somali Republic and playing false to you and to your gracious ladies as well as to the distinguished members of your entourage. In this country, your name, Mr. President, has become a symbol of all the qualities that are desirable in African leadership. No wonder, therefore, that my people in all the corners of the Republic have been overjoyed by the announcement of your state visit. Ever since, I have been indeed under heavy pressure, even from the people living in the most remote areas, demanding that this most eminent guest be allowed to visit them so that they too could manifest their feelings of tribute and warm affection. The program that we have made for you is heavy, but believe me, Mr. President, I have gone to the extremes to shield you from a still greater manifestation of hospitality and affection. Mr. President, I recall with gratitude the occasion when, before the news of my election to the office of President to the Somali Republic had hardly reached the outside world, you were so thoughtful enough, while overflying this territory, in sending me a congratulatory message. Your presence here this evening demonstrates the mutual desire of our people and government to develop and strengthen to the utmost the brotherly relations already happily existing between our two countries. In this context, allow me to take this opportunity, Mr. President, to express on behalf of the Somali people and government our heartfelt gratitude for your kind offer to mediate between Kenya and the Somali Republic so as to assist us to find an equitable solution to the long-standing and vexatious problem confronting the two sister countries. On our part, I can assure you, Mr. President, that we are anxious to see this problem settled to the satisfaction of all concerned, and we are confident that if both sides are prepared to tackle this issue with goodwill and realism, there is no valid reason why a lasting solution should not be reached. Indeed, my government is determined to spare no efforts and will pursue vigorously its endeavors to implement the spirit and the letter of the Memorandum of Understanding reached at Arusha last October with the government of Kenya under your wise mediation. It is an indisputable fact that the Somali people are one of the most homogeneous ethnic groupings in the world, and because of their unique way of life, they are closely knit to each other and are bound together by common language, religion, culture, and tradition. In fact, no part of the Somali people has ever been assimilated or absorbed into another culture or society, despite the partitioning of their lands by the colonial powers. Ever since, this has been the root of the problem, as the dismemberment took no regard for the homogeneity of the people concerned, but was determined in accordance with the interests and rivalries of the colonial powers. It should not, therefore, be a matter for surprise that there is such a strong urge on the part of these populations to regain their unity and independence, an urge which the passing of time has not tempered and that can only be healed by justice. It has been said that when the concept of nation fails to coincide with that of state, the latter should be reshaped to bring it into harmony with the national foundation on which it should rest. This has been done in the case of the Somali Republic, which is the result of the voluntary union between two out of the 5 segments into which the Somali nation was divided towards the end of the last century. The fact that the Somali Republic, through peaceful means, supports the political aspiration of the Somali population still under alien rule cannot in any way be regarded as aggrandizement or irredentism. There is no truth whatsoever in the allegations that this republic is responsible for the manifestation of these political aspirations, whereas this spontaneous drive, far from being imposed, stems exclusively from the people's concerns. The real cause of these continued agitations must rather be traced in the political phenomenon of the development of the national consciousness, which has its roots as far back as the beginning of the century, when the Somali people commenced their struggle for freedom, like other liberation movements in Africa which have been subjected to alien rule. Consequently, the Somalis must enjoy the same privileges of other African peoples as far as nationalism is concerned. Any government of the Somali Republic is constitutionally bound to repudiate war as a means of settling international disputes. Conscious of this obligation, the Somali government has always shown its readiness to discuss mutual problems with its neighbors in order to reach peaceful and satisfactory settlements. Mr. President, it is not my intention to present at this state banquet the Somali case in relation to our disputes with our neighbors, as this delicate task has been entrusted to the Somali government, which has my full support and confidence. With regard to the East African Economic Community, you are aware, Mr. President, that in Arusha I informed the authority that my country would apply for membership. That application has now been submitted, and I know that my government is actively engaged in preparing for the negotiations with the members of the community. I was therefore happy to witness when you, Mr. President, applied on behalf of your country to join the community. It is my belief that this new organization in this part of Africa will offer a great economic advantages to all its member states. It's also my conviction that in this modern age, it's absolutely imperative that we should pull together our resources in manpower, technical capabilities, and economic potentialities for the respective well-being of our people. The East and Central African states, at their last meeting in Kampala, have sown the seeds of unity, cooperation, and goodwill. While it's our sincere hope that this may eventually be the answer to our political aspirations, the East African Economic Community may likewise respond to our objectives in the economic field. With these two organizations existing side by side, we in this part of Africa should be able to find solutions to our problems, and by doing so, contribute substantially to the realization of an even wider African unity. During the past 10 years, many African states attained their independence, and a wave of enthusiasm and optimism swept through the continent, which resulted in the belief that the time was opportune to liberate the remaining African peoples under colonial domination. This determination and dedication of the African leaders for a free Africa was further consolidated by the birth of the Organization of African Unity. Thus, there were high hopes that these laudable aims would be accomplished. It is therefore a matter of dismay and regret that today we find such a radical change in the situation. The South African regime and the Portuguese colonialists are more firmly entrenched than before, whilst the emergence of the legal regime of Ian Smith in Rhodesia represents not only a continued enslavement of our African brothers, but it's also a constant threat to the very existence of the independent states of our continent. In this connection, we deplore the policy of the United Kingdom, which is primarily responsible for the failure to overthrow this illegal regime in Rhodesia. It is also regrettable that the United Nations, notwithstanding its lengthy debates and numerous resolutions on this issue, is still unable to find the necessary support for the implementation of effective measures which would restore the rights of African people of that territory. It is therefore incumbent upon the independent African states to study ways and means to find an effective remedy to this dangerous and intolerable state of affairs. Your country, Mr. President, because of its geographical position, is particularly vulnerable and is therefore destined to play a vital role. We here in the Somali Republic are following with deep anxiety and concern the deteriorating developments of the situation, and in this connection, I assure Your Excellency of our unconditional support. I believe that internal strife within any African country will reflect its negative and harmful effects on the rest of the continent. It is therefore our sincere hope that good things will prevail over the tragic and deplorable events taking place in Nigeria to bring about an early restoration of peace and stability in that great African country. The Organization of African Unity should have the proper backing, for without such support from each member state, it cannot effectively combat the threats of the neo-colonialist forces now more rampant than ever on this continent of ours. Mr. President, my government has made clear its position on the Middle East issue, which is so closely affecting many African states. We believe that Israel and international Zionists are responsible for the chaos and havoc in that region. Israel was born out of aggression, lives by aggression, and will not hesitate to seize other territories by aggression. Yet, Mr. President, there are still some major powers who maintain that Israel's existence must be guaranteed against the Arabs, but so far no one has mentioned that the Arabs should be given guarantees against Israel's aggression. The war of last June was but a continuation of Israel's past aggression. It happened first in 1948, it happened again in 1956, still again in 1967, and it may happen in future. We feel that unless a just solution is found for the root cause of this conflict, there can be no permanent peace in the area. But in all justice and humanity, the millions of Arabs forcibly removed from their homes and lands should be allowed to return. Mr. President, there is another country, and I speak of Vietnam, where heavy loss of human lives is daily taking place. I do not intend to enter into the merits of the conflict, but I do maintain that it is incumbent upon all peace-loving countries to exert pressure that can bring about an end to the hostilities so as to avoid further human suffering. In conclusion, I feel, Mr. President, that we, the African leaders, should take lesson from these tragic happenings if we are to avoid falling into similar pitfalls, which would not only retard but prevent the realization of the aspiration of peace and well-being which our peoples rightfully expect from us. To achieve this, we should first of all dedicate ourselves with renewed determination to solve our differences by peaceful means. Mr. President, it is now only left for me to thank you for having accepted my invitation and honoring us with your presence in the Somali Republic. You are not strangers to us, but brothers among brothers. I hope that you will all enjoy your brief stay with us and take home pleasant memories of your visit. May the Almighty God bless our peoples of Africa. May the Almighty God guide us on the right path for peace and prosperity of our people. Long live brotherhood and friendship between Zambia and the Somali Republic.